How's it going, everyone? Sorry for another storm draft. Today is July 6th, 2021, and today we're going to focus on what will likely become Hurricane Elsa in this video and what impacts Florida will receive from potential Hurricane Elsa as well as the rest of the East Coast. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather icons. And make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather icons. So let's begin by taking a look at the current composition of potential Hurricane Elsa at this time. It's still technically a tropical storm. It's at 70 miles per hour, so borderline a hurricane at this point. And you see that we're now in the later runs starting to see a little bit more convection occurring around center circulation. We're starting to see a little bit more of those thunderstorm clusters blow up within the storm, as this storm is now at a phase where it's gradually developing. And if it weren't very close to land right now, we'd see this gradually increase over the next several days if this didn't encounter land. However, since it is very close to the coast of Florida and we aren't too far from landfall, this will only have only a couple hours to really develop to its max potential. So we won't really see it. Unfortunately, we won't really see it develop into what it could be if it were over open waters. But you see that now the tropical storm is starting to look a little bit more organized. However, it isn't 100% organized, I'd say, just yet, because we still have a little bit of dry air on the western side. The center of circulation is currently on the extreme western side of the storm, and there isn't as much convection in this side, and mainly because there's a little bit more wind shear on the eastern half over Florida right now, over the eastern half of the storm, and it's steering a lot of that convection further eastward. However, this wind shear isn't strong enough to inhibit this from developing or gradually strengthening. As you can see, if we take a look at the wind shear map, you see the reds over Florida and just east of Florida, which represents strong wind shear. However, the storm is just west enough to the point where it's in this little patch where the wind shear isn't necessarily strong enough to completely destroy the storm or to make the storm weaken as it heads closer to the Florida coast. As right now, it's under fairly favorable conditions for development over the next several hours, and that's definitely concerning because we don't want to see this reach its max potential when it makes landfall in Florida. So however, the good news is that this won't have a lot of time over water to develop into what it could be, because I think if this was over open water, we could maybe be talking about a category 2 hurricane in our hands, or maybe even more. But since it is very close to land and it's expected to make landfall within by tonight, we shouldn't see that much more strengthening from what it is right now. However, it's still quite a strong storm right now, at least a very strong tropical storm. If we were to take a look at the current strength of this storm, it's currently sustained at 70 miles per hour, with the movement now going north at a slower pace of 10 miles per hour, which is a stark contrast from what we've been seeing in the past several days, where the speed was a lot faster, over 15 miles per hour and even 30 in some cases. But now the storm has moved slower, which means that the mid-level low and the upper-level low are now starting to position themselves within the same location of each other. And that's the thing I've been paying attention to over the past several days to determine if this will strengthen much at all or not. Because one of my questions is if whether or not the upper level low and this lower level low move into the same position to where they could focus the energy in one area. And we're starting to see that now, as obviously we're seeing a lot more convection around center circulation, as now it seems like the mid-level low and the lower level low are now within the same, or at least very close to the same position as each other, which is now allowing for a lot more convection around center circulation. And now, since it's under a favorable wind shear environment and not a ton of dry air, it is in its developing stage right now. In terms of the current radar, just off the coast of Florida at this time, you see that we do see a lot of rain occurring right around Cape Coral, and around Naples, also experiencing some rain showers. And you see that the eye of the storm is, I'd say, a little further offshore, we're starting to see that bow echo right here, circulating around center circulation, and this is sort of the eye wall of this storm, as it seems like a lot of the west coast of Florida is receiving mainly the outer bands, which don't get me wrong, they still could bring some strong winds, but the good news is that the center circulation will mainly stay off the of the southwestern coast of Florida for the most part, so the winds will be kept at a minimum. However, further northward, it's a stark contrast because, of course, this storm is expected to make landfall between Tampa or just north of Tampa, right around the just before the panhandle of Florida. So you guys along the west coast of Florida, along the Gulf Coast of Florida, needs to pay close attention to this because a hurricane landfall is very imminent, and now hurricane warnings have been issued because now the National Hurricane Center is anticipating this will develop into a hurricane based off of all the signs we're seeing. So you guys need to pay close attention to this. Pay also close attention to flash flooding. Even if you're in the outer bands, these squall lines could still bring rainfall rates in excess of 1 inch per hour. So you need to pay close attention to the heavy rainfall as well, because while you might not see a very high total rainfall from this, it doesn't take a high total of rainfall to cause flash flooding. So if you live near a creek or a small river in Florida, you need to pay close attention to this, or in an area where it is prone to flooding, where there's poor drainage, you need to pay close attention to a flash flood risk for today. In terms of the current winds we're seeing along with these squall lines, we're mainly seeing winds sustained right around 15 to 20 miles per hour. Right around Cape Coral, we're seeing winds up to 23 miles per hour, and 31 winds sustained of 31 just north of Cape Coral. Florida, and around Tampa, we're seeing winds around 12 miles per hour, 21 and 25, right around St. Petersburg, which is certainly increasing over the past several hours, and it is expected to increase drastically as the night goes on, as the night progresses, where we could see winds sustain, I'd say, right around 40 miles per hour in some cases, with wind gusts in excess of 60 70 miles per hour, which is enough to bring some branches down, maybe cause power outages. So keep a close eye on that. But you see South Florida, the range is right around 15 to 25 miles per hour sustained, but wind gusts, of course, are going to be higher than that. We're seeing some winds offshore right around 40 miles per hour, closer to the center of circulations, and all those winds have nowhere to go but land inland into Florida eventually. So keep in mind of the strong winds over there. And in terms of the type of winds you should forecast, let's first take a look at the GFS model with Tropical Storm Elsa to see what type of winds it's forecasting with Tropical Storm Elsa. As we take a look at the 800 or at the lower level winds in the 10 right around 33 feet above ground, you see that the green represents winds between 34 and 40 knots, which is equivalent to over 40 miles per hour. You see the winds are beginning in the coast of Florida, but as this moves further northward, you see the GFS is taking a more a westward track. However, I'd say the GFS is definitely underestimating the strength of this storm, as I expect the winds to be much faster than what you're seeing right now. Taking a look at the winds right now here in southwestern Florida, we are seeing winds right around 20 miles per hour sustained and going up to 30 along the coast. And now we're seeing those winds begin to approach Tampa, and Sarasota is getting the brunt of the winds now, as we're seeing those winds get very strong along the coast. Especially if we were to take a look at the future wind over the next several hours, you're going to see that the wind will eventually expand northward and will get only stronger, as currently the forecasted wind is right around 30 miles per hour sustained along the coast of Naples, Fort Myers, and extending into Tampa. So you guys need to pay very, very close attention to the winds here, as it could cause power outages all across Florida, especially along the west coast of Florida. You see that the wind will eventually move further northward, getting closer into Tampa, and we're going to see the darker purples eventually, which represent very strong winds close to 40 miles per hour sustained along the coast. So, and with wind gusts again going up to 60 to 70 miles per hour, and maybe even 80 around center circulation. So, pay attention to the winds all across Florida, as that's certainly something to be concerned about. Um, Now, taking a look at the rainfall you should expect around Florida over several days, you need you also need to pay attention to the rainfall. It's going to be very important. You see that across Florida, we could experience 4 to 6 inches of rain, which is enough to cause flooding, and even extending just northwest of Jacksonville. And even in Jacksonville, we could see up to 4 inches of rain and up to 6 in some areas. And the good news is that the storm is relatively small, so we won't see a very expansive area where it's going to rain heavy, but we still could see up to 6 inches of rain. And do not underestimate this storm just because it's relatively small in size, because it still could bring widespread flooding across Florida and even extending to the Carolinas, where the Carolinas could receive up to 4 inches of rain associated with Tropical Storm Elsa and what may become Hurricane Elsa. And in terms of the current track forecasts over the next several hours, pretty much you should mainly expect the storm to move up along the coast. If we were to take a look at the GFS model, you're going to see that with Tropical Storm Elsa, we could begin to see this storm move further northward and affect the Carolinas, and even maybe affect New England with some enhanced thunder shower activity. Taking a look at the precipitation forecast over the next several days, you're going to see that Elsa will continue to move northward, bringing rain further northward, and will eventually move very close to the coast of New Jersey, New York, and the mid-Atlantic, and potentially make another landfall in New England, as you guys still are in the cone of uncertainty. And there isn't much uncertainty regarding the forecast at this time, because there's going to be a very definitive steering flow, which will be a trough moving through the United States, the northern United States, which will steer it to the north and east. However, it seems like at this point it's going to come fairly close to New England and the Mid-Atlantic states. So maybe watch for some enhanced rain showers. That should be the main risk, and maybe some rip current risk and coastal flooding in some areas by the amount of winds that could be surrounded by this, because this still is expected to maintain a good amount of its strength. While it won't be anywhere near hurricane status at this point, it could still be tropical storm status, right around 50 miles per hour. So make sure to keep that in mind along New England and the mid-Atlantic coast as well, because you guys certainly are not out of the woods. But in Florida, make sure to prepare, because this will be quite a pretty big event for a lot of you guys in Florida. Taking a look at the current projected path, is expecting to make landfall in Florida right around early Wednesday. I'd say Wednesday morning, right between Tampa and maybe and the Panhandle of Florida, or the beginning of the Panhandle of Florida. You should experience a landfall, and hurricane warnings are now issued, as it is expected to re-strengthen into a hurricane. And as this moves northward, it is expected to maintain tropical storm strength all the way through up into the mid-Atlantic and New England. So keep in mind that for you guys further northward, that you could see enhanced rain showers and stronger wind gusts along with Hurricane Elsa. So make sure to keep that in mind all across the East Coast. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather content. And I hope you guys have